What's going on?
What's up?
Halloween plans?
Already did them.
Already did them.
Bar crawl.
Bar crawl.
Don't remember it.
Oh, well,
That's great.
That's a good thing or a bad thing, depending on.
11 and Mike from Stranger Things was a costume.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, were you 11?
That's not funny. I was Mike. I had a wig.
Okay,
and some
there we go.
socks.
That's actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
Get some socks.
The 80 socks that went up to my knee.
Okay. Did you do
Shaved
anything
me.
else or just long socks?
I tucked my polo into some short shorts and wore the wig.
Okay, the wig.
Yeah, the wig
so
was
the main point.
yeah, came off about 1 hour into the
So did your
event.
girlfriend like shave her head like 11 or?
So 11 had. Do you not watch the show?
I do, but I just
11
wasn't sure
had
which
long
season.
hair in
The
season
second
3.
season.
Oh, there's been 3 seasons. There's totally
There's
been
definitely 3 seasons. You're right. You're right.
So in the 3rd season, she has this iconic dress.
Oh
So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
really
yeah.
popular with cosplay. So my girlfriend bought it on Amazon. It's like
Okay.
$30,
There we go.
and that was the dress.
Cool. Yeah.
Check out my Instagram at Anthony Yeager
There we go.
and follow.
They'll be like double your followers now.
Yeah, I know.
2 to 4.
I was gonna say that. Yeah, I'll go from 2 to 4.
Cool. All right. What are we working with beer of the week?
All right. In honor of Halloween, not as punny as last week, we got some Voodoo Ranger.
Okay. Voodoo Ranger.
See, there's a little zombie on it.
So for
Took the
those-
liberty of opening it for you since the
Appreciate
it's
it.
not a twist off.
There we go.
So this is a dark IPA. I've never had this before. It's 9%. I got it for $10 a 6-pack, so I feel like I got a good value.
9%. That's crazy.
So
Let's try it.
we're gonna Uber home. That's awful. Agree?
That's pretty
Disagree?
nasty. That is disgusting. That aftertaste is terrible.
That's dark.
I wonder if it gets better as you taste it more.
It probably
Maybe that's why
it
it's
gets better as it gets around. I'm sure when we get to the end of it, we're gonna love it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not a fan. Oh man, that aftertaste is terrible.
Yeah.
Seriously. God.
I'm just glad I got like a couple ideas lined up for the future beers.
Yeah. Well, let's write this one off.
Yeah, I'm gonna try not to repeat, of course. I got one for when Beto O'Rourke drops out. I told you
Okay.
guys.
Well, he's not gonna drop out. He's gonna be the nominee. I thought you knew that already.
So, so it was between this and a pumpkin beer because of Halloween.
Ooh.
But I knew I
pumpkin
wouldn't
sucker
like a
for-
pumpkin
Yeah,
beer.
exactly. I would prefer this
Yeah.
bad than that bad.
So
I think
this-
White Zombie's been your best one so far.
Yeah,
in
it
terms
was
of
a good one.
taste.
The peach one was not bad.
Peach one's okay. I just don't.
I
I think
wouldn't
fruity
drink it.
beer is kind of just weird.
Yeah, I don't like it.
I mean, I don't drink beer very often, but fruity beer just doesn't make sense to me.
No sours. Do you like sours?
I don't know.
Yeah, I
I
don't
don't
know.
drink enough to know. I don't even know what I have liked in the past.
You know what I
definitely
like?
don't like this one.
Do you know what I like? Miller Lite.
Miller Lite.
It's never done me wrong. Every time.
I don't know what that means. I don't know what your standard are. If you're expecting like on a scale of 1 to 10 a 1, then be sure.
Okay, first of all, it's tiered up a little bit. It's like a 3, and here's why. Busch, Natty Light, that's 1. PBR. Then you get your Miller Lite, Bud Light, Budweiser, Yingling. No, Yingling's up. And then you start getting into craft territory, fancy
See,
lagers.
I think I've only tried Bud Light and Miller Lite, and this was like a sip. This was years ago, and both of them tasted like basically urine to me. They were not good.
So what do you get at the bar?
I don't usually. So I mean, I'll get just like whiskey, like a whiskey or on the rocks or something. Just I don't. First of all, I don't actually drink that much, but I mean, I usually drink at home if I'm going to drink. But if I go out, it's usually not. I'll try like a beer someone recommended. I don't usually go with Miller or anything like that though.
So
because
we have
no one
a
recommends it.
mutual friend named Lee Byers.
Yes, we do.
Shout out Lee, who's on a cruise right now, and he drinks craft IPAs.
Yes, he does.
Specifically, I don't think he drinks them because he likes them. I think he drinks them because he thinks he's better than everyone. And this is a theory that I'm really comfortable with. I give this a lot of
So is
thought.
that the stereotype that goes with IPAs? Is that in the
Yes,
beer community?
it's
Is
snob.
You're the
Snob.
snob?
Not only does he drink, so this is an IPA, but this is a bigger
Sure.
distributor brewer.
Yeah.
He drinks local craft
Okay.
IPAs that are $7 for 16 ounces.
Oh man. See, now he's gonna insist he comes on the podcast to rebuttal you.
No, he's not allowed to defend himself.
Yeah. Like
I don't want
politics,
him-
just accuse.
Yes.
Don't let him defend him.
No, this is a fact. This is not fake news.
This isn't a spin.
No.
Okay. Well. Yeah. See, he's actually the one that's recommended the most beers to me. And I'd say about half I like and half I don't like. But they are always IPAs. He says he likes them all though. So.
I'm sure he likes them, but he's drinking
Why
them to
does he
assert
like
his
them?
dominance
Yeah.
on what he thinks.
That just
people-
means you're intimidated by him. I'm pretty sure.
I'm not intimidated by Lee Byers.
Oh man, so this week, news. There wasn't like any breaking news. There's just kind of been some build-up with the impeachment stuff. There's been some polling that was released that was very interesting. And I think we'll go into those items, but I think for the most part, what we agreed we wanted to do on this episode was kind of do a deeper dive into healthcare and kind of establish, what the candidates' positions are, what this, why is it even important, kind of some statistics around it that I think will be surprising to people. Kind of that'll be the main portion, right?
Yeah, so I think healthcare is really central to our political discourse as a country,
Yeah,
the Democratic primary especially,
big time.
it hasn't. We've had a lot of debate around it, especially really since 2008 when Obama was running for president.
Yeah.
And since then, we still are arguing about it.
Yeah.
So I think it's worthwhile dissecting our current system,
Yeah.
how it stacks up against other countries,
Yeah.
and then kind of what the top Democratic
Sure.
frontrunners think, and maybe even what the president thinks.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think I think what we'll do is we'll start by just laying out some statistics on why this is important to the American people, and kind of go through just what candidates' positions are, and just break down some interesting facts about it, or kind of why they say things that they say, and go into what Donald Trump's stance on it is, as far as we can tell,
Or lack thereof.
or lack thereof. The Republican Party in general, not even just Trump, really.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things, just real quick, that I was reading today, that was an interesting statistic, is if you look at polling from like the 90s up until current day, Americans were actually more okay with government playing a much larger role in healthcare back in the 90s than they were now. And it was really, I think it was polling done by, I don't know if it was a Kaiser Institute or who it was, but it was a respectable polling company that looked over data from the 90s up into now. And the percentage of people that were okay with the government taking a larger role in healthcare was like high 60s, low 70s, like across platforms. Now it's like it's conflated a lot more.
So in the 90s, obviously Bill Clinton's president.
Yeah.
It was Hillary Clinton's kind of project to
Was it?
advocate to get healthcare legislation passed or reform.
Really?
And she kind of failed. She got some childhood stuff passed for children.
Why is that a thing? I mean, I might get shot for this, but why is it a thing
The
that
pet
the first
project.
lady has to have some type of like purpose that they're working towards? I'm not against it. Is it like
So-
something that's happened the last decade to 2 decades, or has it always been the case?
So, well, good tangent. So Hillary Clinton's was healthcare.
Sure.
Laura Bush, I think, was childhood education, something like that.
Reagan's wife was
Literacy.
to say no to drugs or something.
Yeah, well, it didn't work out. Rest in peace. So, and Michelle Obama's was healthy eating.
Healthy eating.
Young people. What's Melania's Trump?
Originally,
Question.
ironically, was cyberbullying.
Okay.
Being against cyberbullying. I don't
So-
think she knew she was married to one. But
And the reason that's ironic, yeah, cyberbullying. Is Donald Trump a cyberbully?
nah.
Tune in next week
I
to
just-
find out.
Yeah, so that's been her thing. I didn't know if this is something that's always been this way in our politics, is to kind of give the first lady, or if Elizabeth Warren wins, the first man, I guess you would say, something to do in their role, or like why that's a thing that's prominent. I don't really
They're
understand.
there.
Gotta have
They're a
some-
prominent figure.
Yeah, I guess they have influence. Why not use it for good?
Yeah. I think
Again, I'm not against it. It just is always, I was just kind of weirded out by it. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Because they're not like, just because you're married to someone that runs the country doesn't mean you have any specific qualifications yourself, And that's the part
Right.
that's always been weird to me.
Really, I thought you could be first lady and then be president. I don't know. Did Hillary
Someone
miss the
tried.
memo?
Apparently it doesn't work.
Okay, I'm glad. I missed that.
Yeah. No, Hillary Clinton was one of the few that, she was in politics a lot, so she's a little bit different resume. But if you look at like Michelle Obama, nothing against her, but Melania Trump, I guess Laura Bush.
Melania's just trying to figure out how to get the hell out of here.
Yeah, she's like, God, please don't win re-election.
Yeah, I know. Please.
Yeah, so in terms of healthcare though, so what I want to go ahead and start off by doing is just go through some, for me, so kind of to recap real quick before I go into that. I grew up most of my life and still am in a lot of more conservative circles when it comes to politics. Almost, I'd say 90% of the politics I ingested growing up, people I was around, was Republican, conservative, kind of just mainstream stuff. And so it wasn't until Bernie ran in 2016 that I really even started paying attention to the Democratic Party, because one, I was becoming of age where I could start comprehending a lot more, but also because he started talking about things that I found interesting, but it seemed like it was a joke, the way he was like, yeah, let's get free healthcare, free college, free everything, And so all I heard from people on my side of the aisle was he was essentially Santa Claus who was trying to win the presidency by giving out free stuff that he could never pay for, right? And so that was the extent of my critical analysis of Bernie Sanders. And so what I tried to do, though, was give him time and work through his issues. And as I did it specifically on healthcare, I realized he is way more accurate than I would have originally anticipated. And so, for me, it's weird to be doing what I'm getting ready to do, which is defending like a Medicare for All system, because 2 years ago I would have mocked it as a joke of an idea. It's just kind of weird.
So, yeah, and so our system right now
Yeah.
is primarily employer-based,
Yep.
and we have not a public option, but the Affordable Care Act
Yeah.
allows you to get insurance not through your employer in a marketplace.
Yeah.
And that was the result of 2009, 2010 legislation, the Obama administration.
And from what I understand, so I'm not going to claim I've done as much research on the Affordable Care Act as I have on Bernie Sanders' idea, but from what I understand, the pros of the Affordable Care Act was it did insure more people, so more people were insured.
Yeah, for sure.
The cons were costs went skyrocketed up in a lot of ways. So it was kind of like a trade-off that Democrats thought was okay, but that was one of the cons with it, I guess.
So I don't want to get too deep in the weeds
Sure,
on this,
sure.
but the Democrats have full control in 2008 to 2010.
Sure.
So Obama's this new fresh president.
Yeah,
they have the House and the Senate,
Sure.
right? And so they pass really lukewarm health care.
Yeah, from what my research, it was actually not a libertarian, but it was a pretty conservative, like a Romney-esque idea.
It was
Obamacare
it was
actually.
Chuck Grassley's idea, Senator Chuck Grassley.
Sure.
Still around, by the way.
Still
there.
kicking.
From the 90s. So this is what the Republicans won in the 90s.
See, why did they fight so
Obamacare.
hard against it then? I don't understand if it was their idea originally. Like, because I remember hearing all the time, like, I mean, even in Trump's presidency, or when he was running as a candidate, they would knock the Affordable Care Act and all this a lot. So it surprised me when I figured out it was kind of their own idea at the beginning.
This is something that really kind of enraged me in
Yeah.
2016 and during the Obama administration.
Sure.
Was that the legislation Obama and the Democrats passed in 2009
Yeah.
was a Republican idea
Yeah.
from the 90s. And when Obama did it, oh, it's socialism. Can't
Wow.
do it.
Really? Jeez.
And so that's one of the kind of things that I still haven't gotten over.
Yeah.
And now, so we have this system where most people get it through their employer,
Yeah.
which no one else really does it this way.
Yeah, no other country that's similar to ours really does it this way that I can think of. Maybe some certain cities or certain sects within
Yeah.
areas, but overall, like in terms of countries, there's not any I can find that does it the way we really do it.
And how's that working out for us?
Glad you asked. Yeah. So these are some of these statistics that these are some of the points that I was learning as I was looking into Bernie Sanders stuff he was bringing up that no one else I was bringing up.
Right.
So at first I didn't believe it, and after doing some research, I was like, holy crap, that's actually right. So I'm just going to kind of go through some bullet points here just to explain how bad our system is. So one of the first things is that, you know, there's different studies done on this where the numbers could range, but one of the leading causes of bankruptcy in our country is due to medical reasons.
I think
the leading cause actually is. And so they've done studies on everyone who's filed bankruptcy, and they've statistically tried to figure out how many of those were caused either in large part or completely by medical issues. So if you go have some type of work done medically, you can't afford it, it tanks your credit, tanks your finances, so the
Right.
only way to get out of it is declaring bankruptcy. How many people, if you would have asked me how many people do I think declared bankruptcy because of medical related issues 3 years ago, I would have like shot out of the hip and said 30,000, you know, and that would have been like a big number for me. Based on several kind of studies that have been done, the amount they're thinking that declares bankruptcy is actually 500,000 people every year. So that's 1 million every 2 years, meaning Trump's been president for 3 years, it's 1.5 million people that have declared bankruptcy since he was inaugurated. Now, we hear numbers all the time in politics, and it's kind of hard to scale those numbers in terms of how that matters or if that's a big deal or is that, you know, what that may mean. Just for context, you look at Canada, UK, Australia, whatever other, Spain, New Zealand, whatever countries you want to throw in there, how many that declare bankruptcy because of medical issues, you add them all together, and it is a big fat zero. So it's kind of like, well, wait a second, how do we have every 2 years 1 million people declaring bankruptcy for medical related issues when other countries have found out a way where no one does? And you can make a moral argument out of this, or you can make an economic argument. I'm more interested in the economic argument because I think it appeals to more people. And the economic argument is, if you have people whose credit's being tanked, when you declare bankruptcy, it's like a decade out of your life that gets taken out because of that in terms of credit history. It actually has a negative effect on the economy of a whole in terms of what those people can then re-put into the economy by taking out loans on houses. I mean, there's a lot of studies, credit cards, whatever it may be, spending. It just tanks them, and it's just bad for morale in general, right? So it's bad from an economic standpoint, but it's also bad from if you have a family that runs into an issue or an individual that runs into an issue they couldn't have prepared for, like let's just say they're out of a job for a week and someone gets something and it bankrupts them. Mm-hmm. That's not a good system if there's an alternative. And so what surprised me was all these other countries don't have people declaring bankruptcy. So that was one of the first things.
And so the fundamental tenet of our system
Yeah.
is that healthcare is for profit in
Yeah.
the private sector.
Exactly. So there's
And it's 18% of our economy, GDP.
So this is the other point, right? So I always,
Nearly a fifth.
I kept hearing, well, how can we afford Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All system? It's going to cost, and you hear this in the Democratic stage all the time, and it's like, I want to bang my head against the wall every time, because I'm someone who comes from conservative leanings throughout my life, and I know that the Democrats are misrepresenting Bernie Sanders' position on this all the time. So it's pretty bad when someone who has historically been conservative can point out how they're misleading. And so the misleading point is, though, a study's been done by a libertarian institute. I forget the name of it off the top of my head, but they priced out what Bernie Sanders' plan would cost over 10 years. It's $30 trillion, quite a bit of money, right? What people don't realize is that the current amount we spend on healthcare, if you just take that, stretch it out, and add it up over 10 years, is $32 to $35 trillion on a conservative level. So in other words, our current system that bankrupts people, and we'll go into some more numbers on why this sucks, costs more than what Bernie Sanders is proposing. And so you have to ask yourself, why would you, if you're fiscally conservative, if you care about saving money, why would you not want to do a system that saves you money and covers more people? Where's the issue with this? And so that's what confused me at first. But yeah, you're right. The fundamental difference is we're one of the only countries that have a system that's built on for-profit as the underlying factor instead of being coverage for all people.
And so with this, we have the problems that you just addressed.
Yeah.
Another thing is, a huge thing is prescription drug prices.
Yeah, that's huge. And Trump's trying to do, everyone agrees with that. I mean, even Trump's trying to figure out ways to bring it down.
But you're never going to bring it down as long as it's run by insurance companies. I mean,
that's my thing.
You get to make your product and then market it at a price with no competition.
Exactly.
So of course you're going to price it whatever you want to price it at.
This is fascinating. This is actually really, really interesting. That's something I learned today, actually. So a lot of times, my first rebuttal when I heard that Medicare for All was Bernie Sanders' position was, well, yeah, but those countries you're saying you're comparing us to, they pay more in taxes. I don't know if I want to pay more in taxes. I don't like the idea that I have to pay more in taxes for this. I'd rather just do it through an employer, have more control over that. That was kind of my initial instinct, right? We spend more in taxes in the United States that goes towards healthcare than those countries do. So in other words, the taxes we already spend per capita, per person, is more than the countries that offer universal coverage for everyone in their country. So we're spending more per person, quite a bit more. It's twice as much more in most instances, and not even getting the health care we need. And it's just bonkers, man.
And not only are we spending more, there's not a correlation. There's an inverse, I guess, correlation between how much we're spending and the quality of the care.
Yeah.
Just because we're spending more doesn't mean we're getting better care than anyone.
So that was, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was my next instinct. It was like, are we paying more because we're getting better quality? And so the idea is, it depends on what you're looking at. They have better quality in certain areas, we have better quality in other areas, but the ways that most people gauge if your quality is good is life expectancy. There's a lot of different criteria, and there's no overall clear benefit we have that they don't have. So in other words, most studies every study that's been done on comparing healthcare systems in countries, I'm talking every single one has the United States at the bottom of the list when you compare it to other countries that have similar values, similar economies, and whatnot. And so just to kind of hammer through a couple more, so 500,000 people declare bankruptcy, 44 million Americans, which is 13% of the country's population, are uninsured. They don't even have insurance, which is a big deal. I mean, if you can get hit with a sickness, you don't have any backup plan, you're done.
Right.
38 million Americans are underinsured, meaning they don't have the insurance they actually need for sicknesses they're running up against. So we're at, 22% of the country right now is just screwed from an insurance perspective. 45,000 Americans die yearly for not even having the insurance they need, which is a lot of people when you compare that to other countries who have zero. We spend per person an average of $10,000 per person on health insurance. Most other countries spend an average of anywhere from $3,500 to at maximum $7,500 or $8,000. So we're spending quite a bit more than other countries who have systems better than us. And so you have to ask yourself, where is our system better? And the answer is it's just not better. Unless you hone on and cherry pick very specific medicine practices, we're not better in any criteria you look at.
And so this is something, Bernie Sanders has been beating this drum for a couple of decades now.
Yeah.
Yes, before he was running for president, when he was mayor, and in Congress, Medicare for all.
Exactly.
So this system we have.
Yeah.
And in 2008, going into this, everybody agreed on both sides something had to be changed.
Exactly.
And so again, the Democrats took a Republican idea, Republicans didn't like it, and they voted at least like 60 times when Obama was president to repeal it. 60 times.
I did not know that. That's insane.
Which is just fucking nonsense.
That's ridiculous.
It's nonsense.
That's insane.
And they did it for all 8 years. And so now, the key tenet of Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, was to provide another option in a competitive marketplace.
Yeah.
Marketplace is capitalism,
Yeah.
number one. So that was the key idea. But what they did was to make it competitive was they had the individual mandate.
Yeah.
That's what you had to have coverage.
Okay.
The Trump administration eliminated it.
So break that down for me if you can, because again, I haven't looked into Affordable Care Act as much as I have Medicare for All. The part that's been confusing to me though is the individual mandate from what I've understood, and maybe this is my conservative history and I was just pulling from knowledge I have back when I was in those circles more, apparently raised a lot of costs for healthy people. Like there were a lot of people who, like younger people who didn't really have a lot of issues that had to pay this fee. It was almost, there was some, I don't know a lot about it, but what was the effect of that individual mandate?
So I'm not saying this was a good program.
Yeah.
So you had to have health insurance. So there were young people who were opting to say, I don't need it,
Yeah.
I'm not going to get it.
So they had to pay the fee.
But they needed, the Affordable Care Act needed them in there,
Yeah.
basically
To
to
sustain the
subsidize,
system. Yeah,
right,
exactly.
to get people paying in.
Yeah.
And so they didn't want to do it so you would pay a tax penalty and that tax penalty would go back in there.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, if I'm going to pay this tax penalty, I might as well get health care.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So the individual mandate required that and people didn't like it because it did cost them more money than they wanted to spend.
Yeah.
There were these weird, there's a lot of flaws with Obamacare, the
Yeah.
Affordable Care Act. There was this weird pricing brackets where if your income was in a certain range, then you would be eligible for a subsidy
Yeah.
to help reduce the cost.
Yeah.
But a lot of people didn't fall into that, so you'd be making, say, and it depended by state, you'd be making, say, $45,000 a year,
Sure.
and you have to make $44,000 to get a subsidy.
Yeah, yeah.
And now you're paying way more. You're paying $900 as opposed to $200.
Yeah.
Something
Yeah.
like that. So there were and are problems
Yeah.
with it. And another core tenet of it was Medicaid expansion into the states.
Okay.
So the states could say, okay, we're going to take Obamacare expansion, we're going to take Medicaid expansion.
Yeah.
What it's going to do is the federal government's going to pay for it. It is free for the individual state. The state decides, and it's going to cover low-income people for free.
Okay. Okay.
So in North Carolina, we don't have it.
Okay.
We didn't have it because we had Republican-controlled legislatures. It was paid for by the federal government.
Sure.
And the reason this was good is because it helped throw more people on the rolls.
Gotcha. Okay.
But the Republican-led states wouldn't accept it, even though they're paid for by the federal government, not the states.
Yeah. Okay. So.
So there were all these, basically, long story short, all these things to beef up the market.
Okay. And so these seem to be the two, I guess, fork in the road for Democrats right now. Is you go to Medicare for All, which will break that down. It's the single payer system where the government is the main negotiator for insurance and the main person who covers that. Or do you go more like the Affordable Care Act, which is more incremental and it's a public option? Seems to be the split for the candidates on stage, from what I can understand, right?
Right. So Bernie and Elizabeth are Medicare for all. They've come out, they're in support of it.
Sure.
There's a couple differences, but they're
They're
Medicare all.
for it in a let's get it done quick and fast,
Yes.
right? From what I
I
understand,
mean,
though,
Bernie's
that-
like 4 years.
yeah, Bernie, and his idea is pretty simple. His idea is to reduce the age requirement that it is
Right.
every year. for
Gradually,
40, gradually, right?
And so
So
everyone's covered.
it goes from 65 to 55, 55 to 45, 45 to 35, just kind of or not incrementally, but like usher it in yearly is kind of his idea.
Right. And I want to preface this. We're saying healthcare, it is healthcare.
Sure.
But what Medicare for All is, it's your health insurance. It's
Yeah.
not your care.
Yeah, it's your health insurance.
It's your
yeah.
insurance. So
yeah.
it's basically, the government is not running your healthcare, the government is paying
Yeah.
for the healthcare.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
exactly.
there's, some countries do it differently. Some countries have where the government is the insurer and the provider.
Exactly.
There's different variations.
There's a
of
lot
this.
of different variations of
Right.
it. They're all the same in the sense that the government is it's a single payer option.
Yes.
So it all originates from the fact that the government is the sole negotiator, if you will.
Yes.
But how it's implemented is very different. Canada, UK, Australia, all these countries do it differently.
So the Medicare for All idea
Yeah.
is the government is going to be the insurer.
Yeah, the insurer. Yeah. So you still have private businesses that run their practices and everything, so the government would be the insurer of that. And that's Bernie Sanders and, far as we know, Elizabeth Warren's as well, kind of positions,
Yes.
right?
But there's a key difference.
Yeah, there is a difference between the two. Even so, though, I think that every other candidate on stage, with the exception of Amy Klobuchar and Joe Biden, I think everyone else believes in Medicare for All. They just want to, and I don't know if this is a political kind of ploy or what it may be, but they just want to incrementally do it. Like Pete Buttigieg, for example, straight up says, Medicare for all who want it, with the idea, he even says, I know this will happen where people will realize Medicare is better, and everyone will switch to Medicare over time because they'll realize it's a better system, and then it will eventually become Medicare for all maybe in 50 years. Or however long it is,
Which
right?
this is the public option.
Yeah, so But the difference is Joe Biden wants a public option that doesn't lead to Medicare for all.
Yeah.
And Pete Buttigieg, unless he has been flip-flopping some for people that have been watching him, but from what I've heard from him, wants a public option that will eventually lead to Medicare for all. I think that's his way of sidestepping having to usher in Medicare for all, and he still gets the benefit of saying he wants incremental change, so he's kind of a political ploy.
Yeah.
But there is, from what I understood, most people on the stage do believe Medicare for all, but there's only 2 candidates who are like, I'm going to get this done pretty quickly, whereas the rest are saying, no, we need a public option, let's incrementally do this, let's not eliminate private insurance.
Right. So the candidates in the middle, the Beto's, the Kamalas, they have some variations of Medicare for all. And honestly, I don't want to discuss them too much because they're not going to win the nomination.
You never know, man. Beto, let's go.
No, Beto's not going to win. He's going to take your guns. I think Beto said something crazy over the past weekend, but I can't remember what it is.
I know. I can't remember what it did, but I remember seeing an article about him. I guarantee you when this debate happens, in this next debate, he's going to have to come up with something else that's really... Because he has nothing going for him right now. So he has to try some crazy ideas to try to get people riled up. So he tried to say, we'll take the guns, and he walked that back a little bit because he's like, law-abiding citizens will follow the law. I'm like, okay, you have no understanding of the right side of the political aisle to say that.
The Democrats want him to run for Senate in Texas.
Against John
Cornyn. Yeah. Who's like the number 2 or number 3 in the Senate.
Dude, if he runs against John Cornyn, that means he will have been campaigning for like 4 years straight. Ted Cruz presidency.
Yeah, I don't know what Beto wants. Beto's a lost soul. He's wandering.
So, anyway, I agree with you. The main people we probably need to talk about the positions are Bernie, Elizabeth, Biden, and Buttigieg.
Yes. So let's dissect Bernie and Elizabeth Warren.
Okay.
So
they're fitting in Medicare for all camp.
Yes. Right? So there's basically only these two, and I know we kind of said this, Medicare for all as soon as we can.
Yeah.
Say 4 or 5 years.
And Bernie Sanders has laid out a plan to get it done soon.
And Elizabeth Warren, who has a plan for everything,
yeah.
really doesn't have a plan
for that. Yeah.
And I think that's a calculation.
I agree. 100%.
But it has to be, actually.
Yeah, because she's too smart for it to be like,
It's not an oversight.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's
I forgot a healthcare plan. Oops. Yeah. No, so Bernie is straight up said, your taxes are going to go up.
Exactly. So that's the point that attracted me to Bernie back 2 years from now. Is I really appreciate when people, whether I agree with you or not, I appreciate if you give me all the cards on the table. And Bernie says, look, to pay for this, your taxes are going to go up. But the argument is, let's say your taxes go up $500 a year, but you were spending $1,000 a year on health insurance, then your total costs are going to come down. So in other words, he's saying that yes, your taxes will go up, which is politically not popular typically, but he makes the case that just because your taxes are going up doesn't mean your overall costs are going to go up. They're actually going to come down.
Right.
So.
And the calculation by Elizabeth Warren is she's not going to say your taxes are going to go up.
She's not going to say that.
When she's asked about it, and Mayor Pete is hammer on this, Bernie to a lesser extent, she says costs will go down.
Costs will go down. She refuses.
Which is true.
No, she's
probably.
Not. She's not. So, for the majority of American costs will come down. They've done plenty of studies on this, and your average American middle class, making under $200,000 a year, whatever it may be, your overall costs are going to come down, especially if you take into account the fact that the chances of you or someone you love coming down with some type of illness that might be pretty expensive, once you factor in all that, it's very good for the middle class. But, Elizabeth won't straight up just say, our taxes are going up.
And her idea is, and we can talk about this if we want, is she refuses to say that because the ad writes itself, and we've kind of talked about this, where the Republicans and the Trump campaign are just running an ad that says Elizabeth Warren's going to raise her taxes.
Exactly. You just need,
which is easy.
20-second snippets to run political ads, right? Where it says this person says your taxes are going to go up. You don't need to provide context. You don't need to. You can straight up lie, but if it makes enough. Actually, side point. This is interesting. Twitter just announced.
Yes, I saw this.
Running political ads for anyone.
Yeah, Twitter will not
be
running political
ads. Which is awesome. I'm actually a really big fan of that. Instead of nitpicking who's factually correct and not, and it coming across as biased, to me, I'm okay with just eliminating political ads from the thing. And his point was that I enjoyed was, look, if a politician is making a case about something, it needs to be made popular because it gets retweeted and people agree with the argument of it. Political ads, like the one Trump ran on Joe Biden about Ukraine, is just factually inaccurate based on anyone's observation of it in terms of why we're not going to go into all that. But the point is, if his ad is factually inaccurate, should Twitter step in and remove just his ad? But what about other ads? And it gets messy in terms of who should and shouldn't. And so I was pretty excited about that. But to the point with Elizabeth Warren, she doesn't want to give that 20-second snippet to be run formally on Twitter right now on Facebook.
And I don't see her coming out and saying taxes will go up.
No,
she's not going to say that.
This is what's annoying. So I was looking at a poll from the Kaiser Institute, though, and 80%, I think it's 70 to 80% of Americans said with a Medicare for All system, I do believe my taxes will go up. So most Americans kind of understand that.
But you can't say it.
But,
Because there's
yeah.
the way the voting system works is it's not popular. It's not a popular vote.
To raise taxes.
So
Yeah.
there's going to be Midwestern people that
Yeah.
a Democrat has to win some of these states,
Very
and you
true.
can't have taxes
That
that
sound
go up.
point.
Which I think brings us to a good section of this subsection is, if we want Medicare if we want it,
Yeah.
and we're going to vote for a candidate who's offering this,
Yeah.
how politically feasible is this? Because say,
Yeah, that's true.
in some reality, that Bernie Sanders wins president,
Sure.
and even if he has full control of the House and the Senate,
Yeah.
that by
Doesn't
no
guarantee
means.
anything, actually.
There is actually, and the reason I'm more inclined to support the public option
Yeah.
is because I just don't see a way you pass this
Yeah.
in the first 2 to 4 years of a presidency.
So I guess my question is, and you're right. So theoretically, if Bernie were to win, which right now is not looking like it's going to happen, but it certainly could, depending on which poll you want to cherry pick from. If he were to win, let's say the Democrats take the House and the Senate, there's still a lot of Democrats who are against Medicare for All. There just are. Joe Biden is the front runner who's against it, right? So
Right.
there's still people, moderate Democrats, who are against it.
And they have to be against it. They want to protect their seats.
Yeah, and so it's interesting. Bernie said he's going to primary any Democrat out that stands against him. I don't know how feasible that is, but I think that's pretty funny. But yeah, the question is, can Bernie even do this, right? And I think he can if he has enough people behind him, but I don't know if he has that element just yet. So, I mean, it's yet to be seen. So then the argument is, well, do you go for something that's probably going to die and not even work, or do you go for something that improves our situation that is definitely feasible, like the public option?
And this is something, and I think it just underscores how philosophical this primary is, that we keep coming back to this.
Yeah.
Incrementalism versus huge
Yeah.
transformative
Yeah.
actions.
So here's my thing. This is my personal take on it as of now. When I go through 500,000 Americans doing bankruptcy, 45,000 dying, 42 million uninsured, 38 million underinsured, incremental change isn't enough. It's just not. It's not going to get these people the help they need fast enough. And my thought process is, just like Republicans will call everything under the sun socialism that Democrats do, you can always straight up say, well, it's not the timing. It's not the timing to do radical change. We just need incremental change. And the truth of the matter is, most of history that we learn about in America is when people did radical change. It wasn't incremental steps. There aren't a lot of, and maybe it's because it's not as flashy, I don't know, but when you look at abolishing slavery, that was a radical done with. When you look at the Revolutionary War, it's radical done with. When you look at FDR's deal that he did, it was radical go with it. Most highlights in our nation's history, rather, is is a spark of movement of people which gets something changed pretty radically, and then some stuff returns to the status quo. So to me, a public option just doesn't address enough of the needs that are out there. And I mean, we saw what happened with Obamacare. It didn't really work because Republicans are working overtime to just make sure it doesn't work, right?
Right.
So I don't know.
And so this is the tenet of Bernie Sanders' whole campaign, is it's a movement.
Exactly, which it is. I mean, it is.
But having worked in politics,
Sure.
and knowing the reality of the way districts are drawn,
Yeah.
and the way we vote, I don't see a path to a Democratic victory
Sure.
if this is the core platform.
Yeah.
And the reason is, it's so easy to put out rhetoric against it, socialism, etc.
Sure.
And even if I agree that we should have Medicare for all, is that the politically right move
So this is what
to
I'd
win?
say.
Because you only get two options.
I mean, I see what you're saying, but I'm someone who's very conservative in my upbringings, and it won me over. So to me, now.
But you're reading this stuff.
Now,
People are not
yeah,
paying
that's
attention.
true. How
to
do
this
you win
stuff.
over uninformed people who are rather, either don't have the time for politics or just straight up ignorant about it? That's a good point. And, I'd like to say if you spend the time to educate people, maybe they would go over with you, but I know that's not true. So, yeah, I mean, there is a political calculation aspect. I just don't understand what the Affordable Care Act or the public option is really supposed to help. That's the part I don't understand, I guess.
I think the Affordable Care Act has just kind of fizzled out, especially not because it's been attacked and because key
But
elements
that's what
have
you
been
have to
legislated against
understand.
it.
Is
Right.
Republicans are going to, literally, they're going to, even if it gets passed, find ways to cut it at
Right.
the knees so it doesn't work.
Yes, they're going to destroy everything that's good because Mitch McConnell hates us. So,
Wow.
yeah. So the public option, I think the idea is no harm, no foul. You can keep your employer insurance if you like it.
Yeah.
If not, you can opt into the system.
See, but then the only people opting into the system are unhealthy people who probably aren't doing well financially. It
Right.
can't sustain itself.
It's right, which is why I kind of think Mayor Pete has a middle ground here, whereas
Does he?
eventually, we are going to have Medicare for all, but it's not going to be as drastic of a change.
See, but what his argument is, and why I don't like his argument, and why he annoys me, is because he tries to say Medicare will win in the end. And that's not true, because the Medicare that will be available to people, the only people that, like, if you're working at an employer where you have your insurance, you're not going to opt out of that insurance and go with this Medicare option. It's never going to happen. People aren't going to do it. The only people that go towards the Medicare option are going to be people who are sick, financially unstable, who really need help. But they're not being subsidized by anyone that's healthy and can pay into the system. So it's going to collapse within a decade and not work, which then shows the Republicans that, see, when the government gets involved in healthcare, it just falls apart. We need to return back to our idea with the free market capitalist. So I just don't see his idea actually working the way he thinks it will.
So how do we pass it? Because if
Sure.
Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders wins,
Yeah.
maybe the Democrats
See,
probably
but
hold the
why would,
House.
this is what you have to ask the question. Why would, if Bernie were to win, that means the country's behind Bernie's ideas. Which means if you're a Democrat, even if you're in a moderate district, like, the Republicans are having the same problem with Trump right now, right? If they don't back Trump, because he's so popular with the people, even in moderate districts, they face some issues with it. And I think they did a poll in New Hampshire where Trump himself is not popular in New Hampshire. Still, the majority of people there don't support, like, impeaching Trump, because there's like this weird element of they get behind the president regardless. And so I do wonder what that dynamic would play out for Bernie, but I don't know.
So this is the test. So Democrats won the House, moderates won the House. And again, I'm just saying the political reality of this is
Yeah.
moderates won the House, Republicans control the Senate, we're gridlocked. If Bernie wins,
Yeah,
then I can see, yes, obviously that means the country is behind him, or the country
yeah,
hates
but how
Trump.
much does that count, I guess, is a question.
But even if he wins, but the Senate is Republican, he's done.
It's over.
So we can't pass anything. And I'm not saying a Mayor Peter or Joe Biden presidency wins the
Could.
Senate.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that, but I just honestly,
Well, do
my
you think-
point is we're screwed.
Yeah,
Because,
either way.
right. That's the bigger
I love
takeaway.
this optimism, yeah.
Because if Mayor Pete wins,
Still faces
then
the
it's
same
going to be
problem.
moderates. Then we're not going to Medicare for all anyways, or we'll have this weird
Do
thing.
you honestly think any Republicans would support anything
No.
Joe Biden?
So that's the thing, though.
Yeah, I mean,
It doesn't.
honestly.
So Joe. Well, this is why I don't like Joe Biden, because he has this fallacy that Republicans are going to work with him because he's
Yeah.
nice. He was friendly to them
Yeah,
30
it's
fucking
like,
years ago.
okay.
It's ridiculous.
It's like
Sorry for dropping the f-bombs,
Yeah.
but I'm just healthcare upsets me. But see, this is the thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what the solution is.
Yeah,
Because
no, that's why you have to have the movement. That's why Bernie's thing is not me, us. That's why when 27,000 people show up to his rally at Bronx and it doesn't get reported on by mainstream media, it is like, well, there's a movement that's clearly happening here. No other president has had the amount of individual donors, including Trump, that Bernie has, which means, and the top people donating to him, like, it's the lowest dollar amount, but the people who are donating to him are like Starbucks workers, Amazon. I mean, it's people who are working at pretty lower level jobs. So, yeah, the movement is the only way to get it done, but I mean, how likely is that to happen is the question.
well, here's the flip side of that is
Yeah.
if it is a movement,
Mhm.
which he clearly has something.
Sure.
If it is a movement, he can energize new voters, and that's the key.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Because, and I don't think Bernie's trying to do this, but
Yeah.
you're not going to flip these independents, or if you do get independents to vote Democrat, they're certainly not going to support these radical measures.
Yeah.
Bernie is recruiting new voters, and so you see so many young people like him.
Yeah. He polls very well with young people, and then one other poll I saw that was really interesting in New Hampshire was, I can't remember the exact poll, but they broke it down by people who are very liberal or moderately conservative, right? And the people who were moderately conservative, 20% of them said Bernie was their preferred candidate. So we have this spectrum, I like to say, left, right, radical left, moderate,
Radical
right. You know, the crazies on the far left, and then the middle people are, you know, the smart
Yeah.
ones, right? It's kind of the spectrum.
How many are those middle people? That's what I.
It's. I saw a quote once that being a moderate is sticking with the status quo and masking it as just truth telling, like, or something like that. And it's just kind of like, yeah, I mean, it doesn't work. But the interesting part for me was people who find themselves that lean right liked Bernie the most between Joe Biden and Elizabeth Warren. They liked Bernie the most because when you talk specific policies, you have much more productive conversations with anyone. I don't care if you're left, middle, right, very right. if I can have a policy conversation with you, we have a lot more common ground than if you're trying to view everything through the spectrum of, left, right, centrist. And so, I don't know. There might be more people that get behind Bernie when you talk about creating more voters. Third week in a row where the battery dies. This is great. I even charged it this time. Yeah, this is what happens when you buy an off-brand camera.
Never yet.
We're going to speed through the next 10 minutes, hoping the battery doesn't die.
So we were talking about Bernie Sanders. Can he get this passed? So my point is this: when you're right,
Sure.
if you recruit new voters, I think this is feasible. The
Sure.
problem is people
What are
don't
the
vote.
chances? Yeah.
And so the reason I'm saying advocating for incremental changes is because, moderate swing voters aren't that huge of a percentage of the country,
Sure.
but they're the people that vote, and that's the problem.
Okay.
And Bernie is trying to fix this because I don't think Bernie's trying to flip people or convince people to
He's
swing.
trying to get new voters.
He's recruiting new voters.
Specifically young people.
If that
Gotcha.
works, you can do
He
Medicare
can
for
maybe
all.
work it out. So the point is, for Bernie to make it work, he needs a lot new voters and a huge movement to make it work. For Biden and them to make it work, they can't because Republicans
Right.
hate
And
it.
Elizabeth Warren, I think, is just not as aggressive on it as Bernie.
Which might
Even
be
though she
good politically as a strategy. I don't know.
Well, here's the thing, though, and this is what you said: Bernie's going to primary out Democrats who vote against it.
Yeah.
Bernie is not going to stop.
Yeah.
Even if he wins,
he
he's
has
going to put
he'll
his
die
people.
before he stops.
Yes,
Yeah.
which could be any time now, unfortunately.
Sorry, Bernie.
No, but that's the thing is
Yeah,
like
that's playing a part, yeah.
Warren's going to. She's calculated, I think, almost like Barack Obama. She's more liberal than him, certainly.
Sure.
But politically calculated, and she's not going to do that. She's
Yeah.
not, because it's like, okay, if I primary out a Democrat, say I have a swing district,
Yeah.
it's 50-50. I primary out my moderate Democrat, and a very liberal Democrat wins the primary.
Yeah.
Does that mean they're winning the election?
Yeah. It is crazy. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of components to politics, which is what I like. So I'm someone.
That's why I quit.
I like it because I haven't been involved with it. But as soon as I was involved with it, I'm sure I would turn pessimistic with it. But I actually like the thing. I've always, just my personality likes big structural changes that benefit the most amount of people. And so if you can make a case to me, I don't care if it means more government, less government, whatever it is, that it's a structural change that needs to happen that will benefit a large portion of people, I'm usually going to get behind that idea. And that's why I like Bernie's, and Elizabeth Warren as well. They seem to be talking the most about specific issues and structural changes that will help that. If my car doesn't have an engine, I don't really care about the meter. And that's what, we didn't go into it, but the Republicans' plan on healthcare to me is just bonkers because they expect the invisible hand
plan.
of the marketplace to self-regulate it. And it's just absolutely absurd.
Which is what got us into the problem to begin with. and
I
why we have
would
Obamacare.
argue that for sure. Yeah, exactly. I don't think that. I think whereas the invisible hand works, if you're talking about iPhones, cars, things like that. If you're talking about what price can you put on life-saving procedures, I'm going to pay you as much money as I can afford to save my life. And so the invisible hand then becomes an overhanded.
Because they're going to charge as much as they
Yeah,
can, because
they're
they know
gonna-
you have to pay.
They're going to abuse the fact that they know. I mean,
They have abused.
yeah, they have
Yeah,
abused. I mean, it's absurd if you look into this. So our system sucks currently. The Republican Party's arguments for this is let's not get the government involved because boo government. I mean, I honestly could go on a 10-minute rant of pure anger and rage about what the Republicans' plans are for healthcare, or what their counter arguments are against healthcare, because they just seem to constantly say, I don't care that there's 500,000 Americans that are committing bankruptcy. I don't care that there's 45,000 dying every year. I don't care that 42 are uninsured and 38 are underinsured. Socialism, Venezuela is supposed to cancel out all of that. And I'm just like, seriously, is that really your guys' intellectual argument here? It's so annoying.
It's for profit.
Yeah.
That's it. It's money talking.
I don't want to call 911 and be told, well, which plan are you on and how much money did you pay and are you sure someone's there because
Right.
we're going to charge you an arm and a leg to come out there and check on you. It just doesn't make sense.
And the thing that always gets me, of course, is that the Republicans that are voting for Donald Trump
Yeah.
are usually,
Yeah.
voting against their own self-interest in this.
In a lot of cases, yes, and I would argue, yeah. Because he's positioned himself as a populist that's in the working man's
Right.
interest. He's done a great job of, constantly campaigning as the guy that's going to have your back. And he convinces a lot of people about that. And in some instances, I'll give him credit. The tax cut helps a lot of people, it does. But that's only because you can't have a tax cut for the top 1% of the country unless you give a bone to the middle class. And that's what we got, is a bone to the middle class.
About, and see, the thing is, the Republicans that are lawmaking and legislating and that are in power
Yeah.
are benefiting from this.
Yeah.
The people that are voting for them are not,
Yeah.
but they're still voting for
Yeah.
them. Which is why you need someone like Bernie Sanders,
Yeah.
I guess, to try to change that.
Another thing is, and hope to God this battery holds up, but another thing is that's really...
Oh, it's red. We need to wrap up. I think I'm serious.
Oh, it's red. Okay,
Yes.
cool. So we'll go into more details what the Republicans' plan is this and try not to knock it as much in the future so we can be a little bit more unbiased. I just think it's a joke what their plans are because they don't really have a plan and what their common values about it is seems ridiculous to me. So,
I'm going to continue to be biased.
yeah. Biased towards facts. So
Yes.
we'll go ahead and wrap this up because the camera's about to die. Appreciate your patience with us. Sorry about the break about 10 minutes ago, but we'll do some more on healthcare in the future. But the point is, our current system sucks compared to other countries. They figured out something way better. Just because it requires more government doesn't mean it's a bad idea.
Agree.
I think that's it.